I know David Lynch doesn't do a lot of prep, and you guys obviously have worked together for a very long time. So, what discussions, if any, did you have going into Twin Peaks?
I would say creatively, probably none. I mean, we didn't have a lot of prep. It was mostly taken up with location scouting and logistics and production. We did a little bit of pre-shooting during the prep period, but we didn't really. I mean, it was such a huge undertaking. You really didn't know where to start. So we didn't. We just sort of went out there and started shooting.
Did he give you, when you were shooting, did he just tell you, like, whenever you're setting up a shot, like, what he wanted? Or did he just leave you to your own devices?
Well, typically we rehearse a scene and they would be very specific about the shots and how we're going to shoot it. And then we were just sort of left to light it and, knowing what the shots are and light it for whatever mood the scene you sort of got from the rehearsal. And that's how we proceeded on the whole show.
Did you ever come up or light something in a certain way and David was like, no, don't?
Fortunately, not on this project. It's happened in the past, but not on Twin Peaks.
Well, I know you guys also shot the show as a movie, and it was like, the script was like 500 pages, and you guys didn't go episode by episode. So what kind of challenges did that create?
Well, yeah, I mean, it was like a 520-page movie. And so there were no episodes. We didn't really know where the episodes breaks would be. So we scheduled it like a movie and shot it like a movie. And, since we had worked together before under those conditions, it wasn't that unusual. It just was really long, really long. Yeah.
Do you think that helped or hurt you not having like the bigger picture or like full context of where pieces fit?
That's a good question. I mean, there were parts of it, we talked specifically about sequences, sets from the original series and how to handle those visually. David very much wanted those to be reminiscent and have the same sort of feel as the original series, even though, it's 25 years later. But that was really it. I mean, the other material, we just sort of treated it as it came, as we rehearsed it. And if he had a specific mood, we really just talk about mood. And as far as lighting goes, once the shots are figured out.
Well, before the 8th episode, you Instagram that it was, what did you write? I'm going to quote you properly. Part 8 is, quote, like no other. So you did not lie. You did not oversell it or anything. So first of all, what was your reaction when you found out what episode 8 would entail? And then how did you tackle it?
Well, like I said, there's no episode, so I didn't really know where 8 was going to start and end. And when we were color timing, it was a little unusual because David was so busy trying to finish everything. He did a pass of the show, all the episodes, and then I went in and did a pass. And he was still mixing. And so I watched everything silent. And just based on the visuals in part 8, I was just sort of like, you remember shooting all that stuff, but you didn't realize it was all in this episode. Mm-hmm. And so, when we were timing, I was sort of
even when you were
just
shooting
reacting
stuff,
to it silent.
Like you
yes.
didn't know, like, oh, you didn't piece it together. Like this might fit in here.
No, because I mean, you're shooting for 8 months, mm-hmm. and you're shooting essentially one story for 8 months. So the only way we could tell where it was in the sequence, even though I'd read the script, was the scene numbers. Are we in the 200s, the 400s, the 600s? Then we knew sort of where it was in the episode count, but we didn't know what the episodes were. So we knew we had a lot of unusual stuff, and a lot of it was in 8. When I got into the color timing, I was like, okay, It's all in this one.
So was it always planned for most of it, or well, I mean, you didn't know the episode, but the black and white sequence, was that always planned for so much of it to be black and white? Was that David's idea?
Yes, that was David's idea. It was, I can't remember if it was specifically written in the script, but anything that was part of that 50 sequence was black and white. Which at one point, we were shooting, we had a lot in a 2-week period of the black and white versus color. And as I usually do, we shoot black and white, I just turn to David and say, can we do the whole thing in black and white? Because this is really fun. He said, no, but next time.
Next time. For 4 or something
no,
else?
just whatever's next,
Well, the shot of the mushroom cloud from the atomic bomb testing, it's so mesmerizing, and I love how the camera just goes inward and you're just like descending onto like the center of evil. So how did you compose that shot?
That you'd have to ask David, because that was, I don't know, I don't really know if it was a combination of historical footage with visual effects on top. Sabrina Sutherland, who's here somewhere, could probably answer that question. It's all CGI.
Okay.
Yeah.
How much? I mean, like, there's so many special effects in the show. So how does that affect how you compose certain shots and what you shoot?
Well, I mean, most of the it depends on if they're integrated into the scenes or not. I mean, some of them, like that shot, were just on their own, and it's described in the script. And obviously, you're not going to shoot the atomic bomb. So, but there's other portions that are interactive. Episode 8, our friend the frog moth was one of them, and so we had to sort of, they would describe how it was going to move, or so I would operate the camera and just sort of try and follow it around, and he would watch and say, oh, it's not that fast, because these are things in David's head. And so, having never seen a frog moth before, and I didn't really know how it moved.
Speed?
So yeah, exactly. So it was trial and error a little bit, and but that's basically how it went. Yeah.
Some of the black and white shots in the 50s, it was very evocative of like those films of that era. Did you draw inspiration from any of those?
Yeah, we talked about a little bit about, some of the 50s, not horror films, but sort of genre films.
It's very like noir.
Yeah, but as usual with David, you never sort of pick out any movie. It's just sort of a feeling. Because I think everything he does he wants it to be his own. And because referencing stuff like that is very unusual. I was sort of taken aback. It was because normally the first movie we did together, I asked him about referencing things, and he just said, no, this movie's going to look like this movie, and forget about all the other movies and just make it look like this movie. So that's sort of that's the mindset on whatever it is. So the fact that he actually referenced something, I was sort of surprised, but it was 30 seconds worth of reference, and then we moved on.
Mm-hmm. I felt like it kind of worked with that kind of 50s nostalgia feel, because we sort of look back at that period very romantically too. But at the same time, that was like the Cold War and like paranoia, which also fit into the episode with this, like, it's like, this is the origin story of Bob and like evil at its center.
Right.
So
mutations.
Yeah. I think probably the most beautiful sequence in the whole episode is the creation of Laura in the orb. Like, I don't know how to describe it, but it's very warm and emotional with like the gold like radiating.
Yes.
So how did that come about? Was it more David or?
Yeah, I mean, that was, I think, one of the locations and scenes that was the most mysterious even to us until the day of. It was in the story, it's the fireman's house by the sea. So that doesn't really conjure up anything specific until you get there. And it was, we found a location that David liked, and we talked a lot about mood, and we talked a lot about things in the location he didn't like, and that had to be, sort of draped in darkness so that we didn't see them. So it was very sort of specific area lighting to the aspects of the location we loved, and the rest of it had to sort of disappear. So that was sort of how we approached it. And he just throws in elements. There's a movie playing, but we don't know what it is, so we create a projector effect. And the giant is floating in the air, and these things are happening that don't normally happen. So, I'd say along the shoot, not that scene, but along the shoot, there were a couple of days where we sort of looked at each other, the crew looked at each other, and we were like, are we shooting this show or are we in this show? Because there was a day out in the woods up in Washington that was very odd. And
what happened?
Well, it just in the show, it's where the sheriff and everyone, they find the girl in the forest, and there were some fixes we had to do to the set, and next thing you know, it's 3 p.m. It's going to get dark in 2 hours, and you have to shoot a whole day's worth of work. So we moved very quickly, and it got to the point in the scene where all the lighting that we were doing was just really fill lighting in the forest. Well, the light started to drop, and so now the fill lighting became the lighting, and so we were shooting so fast we kept sort of knocking it down so it wouldn't overtake the natural lighting. And there were about 45 minutes there that were just had the weirdest, eeriest feeling. And that's when we sort of looked at each other and we said, what is going on here?
We're in the show.
We're in the show.
Have you watched all 18 episodes since?
Yes, I have.
So now you understand what you shot and do you remember everything?
Understand? I don't know if I understand.
I don't think anyone can understand, but you recall what you like.
Oh,
how it all fits together.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was interesting in the color timing. It was just me and the timer in the room, and it was 9 months after shooting that we timed it, and it was sort of a memory lane, really, watching all this footage, going, "Oh yeah, that day," and seeing how it was all fit together was pretty interesting. Yeah.
Do you have another David Lynch collaboration on deck yet, or not yet?
I don't know. I haven't got that call yet. It's usually a very mysterious process, so